Hi Year 10. So we're going to be looking at different ways of using layering, colour and text today. So we're going to use this image first as our first piece of inspiration to work from. And here you can see one version from that I have made. So I'm going to run through how you may create something like this using your image. So this is based off ideally that you have used a one of your drawings. Sorry, it took me a moment to say that then. And what I've got here is not my drawing, just one I found offline. And depending on how it photographs or scans, you may find, for example, in cases that it might be a little bit too light, for example. So you can hear that, see here that if I just open those up, that I've reduced the contrast on that one. And then what I did do was put the dark tones right up so that I could put another colour on top of it and it would still show. So how did I make that? Well, simply what I did is I drew out the area, well, I created a brand new layer, and new layer, and made sure that layer was above any of those adjustment panels that I'd made. And then I went and selected out the area I wanted to place my colour on top of. And then I selected my colour, so I'm going to select out, in this one I'm going to do it a bit different, I'm going to select out a blue. And then I use my paint bucket tool simply on that layer to bob that on top. And then I use Ctrl D to deselect that layer. And then on this layer simply I played around with the different blend modes until I found one that I thought worked quite nicely. So I think probably I quite like linear burn, and I might just reduce the opacity on that just a splash. Lovely. Right, next thing then, creating some text. Now here I have created some text that sits on top of it. I might make it a little smaller this time, I'll do it in a slightly different way. So I'm going to create a text box. Now currently I've got that set to movie letters on a really huge font, so I reckon that's not going to show because this is actually a really small image. Might have spelled music right. I've just gone for a few words that'll actually show. Music sound up. And don't forget, one of the things you can do on Photoshop is you can actually start to play around with like the spacing in between. So you can see I've written music sound love, but one of the things I can do is change the spacing using this drop down in between the words. So I'm going to probably go with 48, and I'm going to try and make the text a little bigger. That's better. And great. So that'll do for now. So I've selected out my words, so I've got music sound love written here. Now, that's fine. What I need to do is delete that from the picture. So how I'm going to do that now then is I simply hold Control over the text icon and it selects out all the text I've written. And then I'm select on layer 3 and then simply press delete. Then I'm going to unsee my text, deselect that selection, and you can see it gives you a cutout of the blue to reveal the image below. So that artist is really quite simple to do. What you could do with that is add additional text. So you can see I've added the word symphony or the date, for example, to imply that it's some sort of poster. So you can play around with text or ideas or different things that are relevant to whatever your theme is. Right, next we're going to have a look at this poster from the John Wick movie. And ultimately what I'm going to be looking at here is applying the red and then how you apply the vertical text in the box. Right, let's show you how to do that. So this one I've done around a sports theme. Really quite simple. I'll go through how you do that one again. So let me get rid of all these layers. Right, so first of all, I've got my image here. Now, this one I've already, again, taken offline, but it was a lot lighter. I made the contrast, etc. a lot brighter. So, how do I want to put the colour on that? So, first things first, new layer on top of that one. So, we've got a new layer here on top of that base image. Then, using the selection tool, I'm going to draw out where I want my selection to go. And then I'm going to apply a colour. So my example was red, so this time I'm going to have a, I never use a green, I don't know if it'll look any good, but we'll try it. Don't think it's colour often associated with boxing is a green, I could be wrong. But then, right simply, get yourself a blend mode that works with it. So certainly not darker, and that doesn't look very good. So multiply works quite well. I like that one. But yeah, you pick one that works. It's either going to be I think it'll be multiply, really, won't it? And if it's a little harsh, you could always bring the opacity down, or maybe even lighter the colour. I think it might be a case of lightening the colour. Yes, there we go. Right, next thing then, creating your box, and more importantly, lining that box up. So you want to use the rectangle selection tool, and you'll see I've already slightly done it here, so it's got no fill, which means the thing isn't filled in, and it's got a stroke as red at the minute, but I want that stroke as white, and it's already set to 10 pixels how thick the line will be. So quite happy with that, and then just draw it in there. I'm going to have it about that wide. Now the first thing you want to do is just position within that box how high or low you want it. Right, okay, one of the ways that you can just make sure you set that is try and set it first, because if it's the white rectangles wildly out the way, this function won't work. But try and set it as close as you can, and I just want to now make sure it's perfect. So whilst the rectangle is selected, I will also then select the green layer that I want to line it up with. And because I've got move tool selected, these alignment tools become available at the top. I'm going to press center, which is this one, and that's center from top and bottom, and then center from left and right. So now that's nice and in the center. Perfect. Right, next thing then what I want to do is I'm going to create my text. So within this box, I'm going to get my text going, and I am going to write the word boxing in a moment. I'm just going to change my font, so I think impact will work better for this. And let me write boxing. And oh, I hope it's all boxing right. And currently that's green, so I'm going to set that to white. And on this little button over here, that will now change it to be vertical fonts. I'm going to put that as centered, and I'm going to make that a lot bigger. Probably be bigger than that, 80, 100, bit too big. Okay, 90. 90 works fine, and I'm quite happy with that. Now, what I'm going to do with that first of all is right-click the layer and rasterize the type, and then I'm going to select that and the green layer 1, use the move tool selections and get that right, get that centered as well. Quite happy with that. Now, I quite like that picture to still show through the font a little bit, so I'm going to press Ctrl J on the original image layer. I'm going to drag that above and put that on top of everything, and then I'm just going to use the blend mode darken so it still shows through. And that's how you do it. And finally, we're going to look at this example. I'm going to be looking at the slightly pinker background, making the image appear as blue, and then how to place your text down on top, slightly see-through. I think you may have got these principles now, but we're going to try it together anyway. So this is the example that I have created, and I'm going to run through that with you now on how to do it. I'm just going to have to set this document right back. Can I do that? No, I cannot go any further back. Right, okay, so here I've got the original black and white image, and that's on top of the background layer. Now, really simply with this, first thing I did was go onto my background layer, and I selected a nice pastel colour. I'm going to do it slightly differently this time. I think I'm going to get a nice pastely blue, and that's going to be my background. And you can see you can't see that currently. That's because the layer on top is still active. So I'm going to do layer, new layer here, Okay, and now that is selected, and I want to give that skull a red feel, so I'm going to do that now. So I'm going to create the layer above the skull as red, and then I'm going to use the layers, the blend modes, to then affect that more as red. So let's have a look how we get on with that. There we go. So I'll use screen, and that will create that more as red. Then I'm going to highlight both of those layers, and I'm going to pop those. Oh, sorry. I'm going to pop those together. Well, I've duplicated those, so I'll use the duplicate one instead. And then now I've got that duplicate one that's set on normal. I am then going to pop that on to the layer below. I'll use the darken blend mode. I'm quite happy with how that's come out. And then the next thing on top of that then is to begin to use the text boxes. So don't forget, you can play around with your texts. And you can place that within the work using the move tool, however you see fit. Oops, 1 second, and then I can pull that down. Oh, I don't actually do want this. I think I might put it on the head, and that's how you'd fit it on top. And you can still play around with the blend modes on that text layer if you want as well. If you want it to maybe interact with the words a little differently below. So have a good play around with that and see how you feel, but that's generally how you would change the picture and begin to layer up the text on that one.